Hi, I'm Chelsea.
And I'm Lauren.
And we are
The Financial Diet.
So today we're going to be doing something which I think is a little fun, a little embarrassing, but very important, and that's sharing our money mistakes so that we can share what we learned from them and that you might not make them yourself. So I'll kind of kick things off in the interest of fairness. And so my biggest money mistake is one I've actually already made a whole video about, and that's when I ruined my credit. So basically ruining my credit was extremely easy. It happened in a few months when I was 18. Basically, I got a $500 credit limit Visa, maxed it out, threw it away, ignored the bills, ignored the late notices, the collections, whatever. And by the time I actually paid it off, I was 22, my credit was ruined, and I had to pay $1,300 off an original $500 card. And that wasn't even the full thing that I owed with all the interest and fees. They just agreed to cut it down to $1,300 so I would pay it. So my mistake there was pretty simple, and that was not paying my credit card bill. And what I've learned is that it's essential, and now I pay every month in full what I owe on my credit balance.
And to piggyback off of what Chelsea just said, one of my biggest financial mistakes is kind of learning that you should always pay off your credit card balance in full at the end of that month. So it took me a long time to learn this, but months would go by where I would keep a lingering balance of a few $100s in the card and get hit with interest charges. Even though I sometimes would have the money in my checking account, there was a part of me that felt like I didn't want to see that balance get so low, so I would not pay off my credit card so I could keep more in my checking account.
So my next one actually kind of piggybacks off of that too, because one of my worst habits, and it was a huge mistake, was keeping money in my checking account, because like Lauren, I liked seeing that big impressive number, even though it was a terrible idea because it was on my debit card, so I could just be out at a store and swipe whenever I wanted. And it made it so that in like almost 2 years, I really didn't save anything because I was never transferring that money, because by the end of the month when it was time to pay everything, there was nothing left to put in savings. So now what I do is every time I put that money directly, automatically into the savings account. You can set up an automatic transfer with your bank, and that's what I do so that it's out of my hands and unable to be spent on my debit card.
So another one of the big money mistakes I made was when I was 21, I took a trip to Mallorca, Spain to meet up with a bunch of girlfriends on vacation at a time when I was shit broke and should not have been flying anywhere. And not only did I fly someplace when I was broke, I spent like $1,600 on a flight and pretty much depleted my entire savings account. Like, it was one of the worst money decisions I've ever made. And I still look back on that and feel like a pang of remorse. But I mean, it was a good trip, but it was just not at the right time financially.
But that's what's dangerous, right? Because a lot of people will say, especially like as we've discussed, those like terrible Pinterest things, that's like spend on experiences, not on things.
Exactly.
But sometimes you can't afford experiences either.
Yeah, it was exactly that. Like, I was like, I'll never get this chance again to travel, lol. I will get another chance to travel. I was 21 at the time and thought that like this was just the smartest decision because it was something that was going to enrich me. So what I basically learned from that is to just kind of plan and organize and save as far out ahead of time as you can so that you're not slapped with like super expensive flights like right at the last minute. And I always focus now on traveling within my means, and I would never put myself into debt for a vacation, no matter how much I felt like I needed a short trip. I could take a staycation if I needed it, so.
Right, wow. You're like, this is such a great life event that I'm gonna have no savings anymore because I got to go to Spain.
I can eat cat food, but damn it, I saw Mallorca, Spain.
So to kind of keep the conversation going, we asked our readers to send us some of their sort of big money mistakes and embarrassments and what they learned from it, and we're gonna share them with you. So the first one is from someone named Kat, and she's 21, and she says, my biggest financial regret to date is spilling a large mug of tea all over my 1-year-old MacBook Pro. It was my sophomore year of college, and I was drinking out of a Starbucks cup that didn't have a top on it. Big mistake. And there went my $1,000 computer, completely fried. My dad told me that in the grand scheme of things, there are $1,000 mistakes and $5,000 mistakes, like totaling a car, and that I needed to be an adult, suck it up, pay the money, and learn from it. So even though it was insanely stupid, it was a good way of teaching me at 19 to take way better care of my stuff. Needless to say, I now try to be a lot more conscious about liquids near my computer. Wow, that's brutal.
A hard-learned lesson. So our next reader-submitted financial mistake is from Jenna, and she's 30. And she wrote, I totally avoided credit cards and debt pretty much from the time I was 18 through nearly 25 because I was so paranoid about them. My parents had lost their house from debt. So it wasn't until I was applying for my first apartment to rent on my own that I realized I had no credit history and therefore couldn't get a lease. I had to live with roommates for another 2 years until I built up enough credit to have a good score. What I learned, don't avoid having credit credit altogether. It can be just as damaging as having bad credit. You need to use credit wisely, including the dreaded credit cards.
So true. Man, credit cards are scary, but you really need to use them. So our next reader mistake is from Noelle, and she is 26. And Noelle writes, when I was first out of college and starting my big kid job, one of the first things I did was buy a nice car because I'd been driving terrible beaters all my life, and with my new salary, I could finally afford a monthly payment for a really good one. I did not realize how much cars depreciate the second you drive off the lot, or how much a burden that car payment would be every month when I lost my job in a layoff. I ended up having to sell my car at an enormous loss, still had to pay off the balance of the first one, and ended up getting an old used Honda Cash, which I've had for 2 years, and which takes me to and from my new job just fine. As someone who's never had a nice car, I can't relate, but that sounds terrible.
I've had a new car, but it is a burden to have to make those monthly payments for sure. So our final reader submitted financial mistake is from Ashley, and she's 28. Ashley writes, my biggest money mistake has to be buying shitty clothes and shoes for the first 5 years of my adulthood, then wondering why I ever had to replace things like boots and coats every season. I would get t-shirts that would literally fall apart in the washer, like literally turning into strings, because they were so crappy. I shopped a lot at a very bad place we won't name. Let's call it Always 22. Anyway, I once did the math and I ended up spending $480 on work heels over the course of 5 years, each pair breaking and giving me super big blisters. I have since invested in one $200 pair and they're comfortable, durable, and all I have to do is get them resold once every 2 years. Money saved.
That is like my life also. I have not done fast fashion for pretty much a year, and I have to say my life is way better. Like everything, you do pay more up front, but it lasts. It really lasts. Like I didn't even know that you could get shoes resold.
Yeah, you can. Magic.
You can. And it's like, it costs, like $20, whatever. And it's like you have brand new shoes and you can do that a lot. It's crazy. It's like buying nice clothes is like a whole new world, but it really changes your life for the better.
It's like an instant life hack to be walking around with clothes that don't have holes in them.
So those are some of our financial mistakes. And although they were hard lessons to learn, they were definitely worth learning because we're not making them again. And whether it's, not using credit cards properly or buying clothes that fall apart in a washing machine, your financial mistakes are not life sentences. We can all get better. And we want to hear what some of your financial mistakes are and what you learned. So leave us a comment in the comment section and talk about your most embarrassing money story.
So as always, thanks for watching, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button and go to thefinancialdiet.com for more. Bye.